Alright, welcome everyone. So just when we thought the F5 story was settling down, well, it doesn't. Because over the last few days, new updates have surfaced, and they reveal just how big and how urgent this breach really is. We've got new government directives, new numbers, and on exposed systems, and even some surprising confirmations straight from F5's latest filings. So if you're running F5 gear or you work in any environment that depends on it, this update is for you. In the next few minutes, I will show you what's changed since the original report, why the US government has basically sounded the alarm, and how this might shift from a corporate breach into a national level incident. So stick around, because by the end of this video you will see exactly why the phrase "the defenders got hacked" just became even more relevant. So let's start with the big one. The US Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, or CISA, just dropped an emergency directive that basically turns this F5 situation into a national level priority. This directive isn't a suggestion, it's an order, and it comes with strict deadlines. Every federal agency running F5 gear has to patch critical systems by October 22nd, submit a full scoping report by October 29th, and complete all mitigations by October 31st. That's right, a full patch sprint with Halloween as the final cutoff. But it doesn't stop here. CISA's also demanding that all management interfaces be pulled off the internet, and any end-of-support devices, the old unpatchable ones, must be disconnected or decommissioned. In other words, if it's not secure, it's out. Not even though this order technically applies to federal networks. Let's be real. When the US government sets a cyber deadline like this, the private sector tends to follow fast. So if you manage F5 systems, treat these dates as your own internal clock, basically. Patch early, verify everything, and remove those management ports from public view. So screenshots this timeline and use it as your team's checklist. And if you're watching this thinking we already patched, hang tight, because next I'll show you why patch isn't the only concern. The scale of exposed system is way larger than anyone thought. So here's where things start to get a little uncomfortable. Remember when we said this breach could ripple across the globe, especially in our previous video? Well, now we have some numbers. So according to the Shadow Server Foundation, there are roughly 266,000 F5 big IP devices still reachable on the public internet. But here's the kicker. A separate scan by Palo Alto's Expanse team found over 600,000 exposed instances worldwide. That's right, more than 500,000 F5 systems visible to anyone who knows where to look. And even if just 1% of those remains unpatched, that's still thousands of potential entry points waiting to be tested by attackers. And let's be honest, threat actors are already watching these numbers too, of course. In fact, researchers have started to see early scanning activity against F5 devices. Not exploitation yet, but reconnaissance, which usually means the clock's ticking. So yes, patching is critical, but so is visibility. If you don't know whether your F5 devices are exposed to the internet, that's your first task. Go check right now. Don't worry, I'll be waiting here. Anyway, let me know in the comments how many of you have already pulled your F5 management of the public side, of course, even anonymous, in anonymous fashion. I'm curious to see how quickly teams are reacting, and I think that's going to be also beneficial for others. Now, before we get too anxious, there's some good news though. F5's independent audits are in, and they have confirmed a few reassuring things. But there are still risks to keep an eye on. So let's talk about both sides of that next. So let's take a breath. Not everything in this story is bad news, as we said. There are actually some reassuring updates coming out of F5's official filings and third-party audits. First, independent firms Mandiant, CrowdStrike, IOActive, and the NCC Group have all confirmed that there's no sign of tampering inside F5's software build pipeline. That means no hidden backdoors, no modified updates, no supply chain bombs waiting in your downloads. Also good to know, F5's Nginx, Distributed Cloud, and Silverline platforms are officially unaffected. So if your infrastructure includes any of those, you can cross them off your worry list for now. But here's where we still need to stay alert. Investigators are tracking a cookie leakage issue that could expose session data on some federal systems. Not widespread, but worth watching. F5's October batch also included multiple high-severity CVEs, some scoring around 8.8, serious but now patched. And maybe the most important piece, early scanning has already started, as we mentioned during the previous slide. Gray noise flagged waves of probes hitting F5 devices just before the patch window opened. That's classic recon behavior, attackers mapping the attack surface before going live. So yes, the core systems appear clean, but the edges, they are buzzing with attention. Bottom line, the build process is safe, but the battlefield is heating up. Stay patched, stay paranoid, and stay tuned because the story isn't done yet. In the next slide, I'll show you what comes next, the realistic scenario that could unfold from here, and why the next 2 weeks might decide how this entire breach is remembered. So, where does this all go next? Because if you watched our previous deep dive video on the F5 breach, you already know the story started with espionage and stolen source code. Well, this update, it's the sequel, and the plot just thickened. So in the short term, we are entering what analysts call the exploit sprint. Now that patches and vulnerability details are public, attackers have a small window to weaponize what they stole before everyone finishes patching. Scanning is already happening, exploits come next. The question is, who patches first? In the midterm, expect politics to heat up. We may soon see the US officially attribute the breach to a China-linked actor, which could trigger sanctions, indictments, and tighter export rules. And regulators are talking about new vendor obligations, forcing suppliers to prove their development pipelines are actually secure, not just claim they are. And in the long run, this could actually accelerate the global tech decoupling we talked about in the first video, splitting the world into trusted and strategically risky technology ecosystems. It's not just cyber anymore, it's digital geopolitics. So the F5 breach isn't just a one-off case. It's a glimpse of where cybersecurity and geopolitics are heading. Faster patching, stricter compliance, and higher stakes for everyone. Now, if you haven't seen the original in-depth episode, it's linked right below, or maybe on this side. And all the details, PDFs, checklists, and deliverables I mentioned here, so the rapid patch checklist and the threat hunting pack, are attached to that main video for easy download. So check those out, share them with your team, and stay sharp, because when the defenders gets hacked, the rest of us have to move faster. Thank you all for watching, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next episode of the Daily Signal.